Bioorganic weapons are a global threat. Start working with the rest of the world about the Raccoon City incident. Mentioning my desire to reveal. I'm going to tell them everything. I've always valued your friendship, Leon.
Stay right where you are. Mr. President!
Resident Evil 6 is the 8th title in the main series of the famous horror franchise, and is slated by Capcom to be their biggest and most ambitious game yet. Featuring series favorites Leon S. Kennedy and Chris Redfield as returning protagonists, Sherry Birkin and the mysterious Ada Wong also return. The game's roster is further expanded with Helena Harper, Piers Nivens, and the illegitimate son of Albert Wesker himself, Jake Mueller. Each of these characters are paired with one of the aforementioned Raccoon City survivors for a total of 3 roughly 5-hour-long campaigns. Ada's campaign is significantly shorter, and every chapter of hers from 2 onward uses recycled assets from the other campaigns. As is obvious from what has already been stated, there is a plethora of content to go over, but let us start with what is at the core of every game. You have your standard fare for a third-person shooter. The camera features an over-the-shoulder view as previous games starting from RE4. Your weapon can be readied by holding the left trigger and fired with the right. Melee has seen an improvement since RE5 and Revelations, and is a key component in preserving ammo and staying alive. There is also a very basic cover system that is mainly used for recovering stamina and planning your next move. New additions such as sliding, countering, and quick shots have been added to compensate for the increased mobility of enemies. Individually, these mechanics are not all that noteworthy, but it's the way they all come together that really elevate RE6 above other shooters of this gen, and the controls are excellent when handled by someone competent. Watch as the player charges into an encounter and takes out enemies by using well-placed shots to lock down their opponents, keeping them from retaliating so that they can move in with slides to finish off the target in hand-to-hand. Exploitation of invulnerability frames from dodges and other melee attacks allow the player to continue pressing their assault while suffering minimal damage. Once the skirmish is just about over, the player pulls back and recovers their stamina by going into cover.
You have a problem. A big one.
Adding to the deep core mechanics are the sheer amount of options and variety with which you can take down enemies. Almost every creature in the game can be countered, and some even have counters unique to them. Contextual prompts near walls and other parts of the environment only help add to the visual variety and satisfaction received from killing an enemy. Likewise, each character have their own unique melee attacks fitting with the theme of their games. Leon's frontal takedown has him utilizing the opponent's own weight to take them out, while Chris outright lifts an enemy up and brutally tosses them at another. The game's inventory has been streamlined as well. The horizontal axis on the D-pad switches through weapons, while the vertical axis switches through support items such as first aid sprays and grenades. Herb mixing has also been redone to allow both manual and automatic mixing. The dying status has also been overhauled. Now, when a character is put into this state, they will be knocked to the ground with whatever weapon they had equipped. While in this state, a single attack from an enemy will result in death. Lastly, skill points replace weapon upgrades. Skill points are required from either killing enemies, smashing crates, or unlocking special cases. There are a multitude of skills available to purchase for a variety of playstyles. In the end, the gameplay is the main reason you'll be coming back to RE6 time and again. The system is complex and has a rather steep learning curve, but mastering it grants some of the most gratifying and dynamic combat you'll see in a shooter this gen. The 4 campaigns in Resident Evil 6 each feature a distinct theme. Leon's story starts off with the one-day cop having just shot the US President, Adam Benford. His story takes us from an infected California college campus, and from there to China for the game's finale. Naturally, this campaign puts an emphasis on reliving the days of RE2 and 4 for a more subdued horror experience, which is generally maintained up until the very end of the 4th chapter. Chris brings us his perspective of the game's events with a far more action-packed campaign that sees his fall from grace over losing his entire squad, and his struggle to redeem himself that ends with one of the more dramatic moments in Resident Evil history.
Ever since Adonia, all I've wanted is to see you dead. But this isn't about vengeance. It's about justice. It's over, Ada.
Jake's campaign follows a more dire route than Leon and Chris's, as both he and Sherry are pursued by Neo Umbrella and the Ustanok, a self-aware BOW that serves as a spiritual successor to the Nemesis Tyrant in Talos. His campaign starts out in the Eastern European state of Adonia. The locale then switches at around the halfway point to China while building upon Jake's character and his relationship with Sherry for their inevitable showdown with the Ustanok.
Enough of this cat and mouse bullshit. Come get some, you ugly son of a bitch!
Lastly, Ada's campaign brings back the more isolated and puzzle-oriented aspects of older RE games, all while giving a unique perspective on the other three campaigns. This is by far the most varied of all the stories in RE6, and subsequently reuses the most assets from the aforementioned campaigns as Ada tries to unravel the mystery behind her doppelganger.
Now I get it.
In between the basic gameplay of RE6's campaigns are a handful of driving segments and escape sequences in place to keep things varied. There are also a number of boss fights, some of which are tributes to older RE creatures such as Neptune and Yawn.
About time you showed your ugly face.
Mercenaries mode also returns. While it has been changed significantly since its introduction in RE3 as Operation Mad Jackal, it has stayed largely the same in regards to the RE4 and 5 iterations. With the new mechanics at work, however, it is a much more enjoyable diversion from the campaign than 4 and 5's were, and adds even more replay value to an already massive game. An all-new mode exclusive to Resident Evil 6 has also been added in the form of Agent Hunt. Borrowing inspiration from titles such as Perfect Dark 64 and Dark Souls, it allows up to 2 other players to invade another's campaign during specific points as an enemy. While it is mildly entertaining to have the chance to disrupt another person's session, the fact that the player-controlled infected use the exact same set of animations as the NPCs means that the controls feel awkward and difficult to manage a lot of the time. Intersections will occur whenever the searching for partner notification appears after a loading screen. This is the only time that the campaign allows 4 protagonists to work together at once. Graphically, the game is a definite step up from RE5. The game's lighting effects are rendered in real time rather than utilizing the green high-contrast filter of its predecessor to give depth to objects. While the MT framework is beginning to show its age, the visuals are among the best that Capcom has ever produced for a game this gen. As far as sound is concerned, the audible effects are visceral, and the sound of a Joavo or zombie's head exploding into chunks is exceptionally satisfying to hear during a firefight. The audio effects for the Lepotista and Rasplapanye are equally noteworthy and disturbing to hear, mixing well with their respective soundtracks to create a sense of repulsion. Voice acting is another area where the game's sound is at its best. Performances given by the cast help to push forward the story by providing us with dramatic moments such as this.
After what she's done to us, how many of our men are dead because of that bitch?
I'm right there with you, Captain. But your personal vendetta isn't gonna get us anywhere. If you hadn't been blinded by vengeance, we could have prevented some of those deaths.
Shut up.
Do you even care about our mission anymore?
Shut up!
I feel sorry for all the men that died believing in you. What happened to the legendary Chris Redfield, huh? What happened to you? It's a good thing Finn's not around to see you this way.
I'm going after Ada.
No game is perfect, and a game as large as Resident Evil 6 is no exception. Due to the game's netcode, if playing in an online game with high latency in Chris's Chapter 1, friendly AI will sometimes refuse to assist the player in shooting enemies. Likewise, there is one spot where the AI of both the allies and a lone enemy seems to have shut off because of latency issues. Both will just stand there looking at each other, which breaks the sense of immersion. Zombies will also sometimes not die when decapitated. This leads to unexpected situations where the player is grabbed by an enemy thought to have already been dispatched. On the positive side, partner AI is exceptionally competent and generally more help than harm, especially when compared to the AI in 5, though even their pathfinding can become bugged at times. There are also certain zombies that are scripted to not activate until the player goes near them. Until their scripting triggers, it is impossible to harm them. This can, however, be counteracted with clever use of quick shots or slides. While not nearly as brutal as in 4 and 5, QTEs return in RE6, with a handful that match the punishing reaction times of the last 2 numbered entries. Cinematic QTEs can be outright performed for the player by turning on the auto action option in the game's settings. Context actions for parkouring when sprinting are a bit too sensitive and can lead to new players vaulting over objects they didn't intend to while moving around. Quick shots can also sometimes miss their intended target, but generally go where the player wants them to. The cover system is nothing special compared to titles like Gears of War and Army of Two, but its inclusion is more for the sake of letting the player recover stamina and pick their next target before jumping back into the fray. On higher difficulties, it can come in handy when being overwhelmed by gunfire. A little more polish on this mechanic could have benefited the game at select moments. The camera will also be taken away from the player at times to show off a location of interest or other objective. There are two varieties of this. The first allows the player to continue moving, but locks the camera to a specific area. This generally isn't much of a problem except during combat segments where a camera pull can lead to one's aim being thrown off. The second one removes control from the player entirely while enemies are still able to move around and attack. The player is generally invulnerable during those segments, but if an enemy starts to attack just as control is returned to the player, it can lead to the occasional cheap hit or even death. Overall, Resident Evil 6 is a game that is the sum of its parts, but the amount of content greatly overshadows the lack of quality in certain areas. Not many action games can boast a nearly 20-hour-long campaign with a fun and unique combat system to complement it. The scale is epic, the stakes are high, and the story is the most complex of any RE game to date, brilliantly tying together bits of the series' lore into an overall great experience. Resident Evil 6 gets an 8.75 out of 10.
Put your gun down, Chris. She's a key witness. We need her. A witness? She's the one who did all this!
Resident Evil 6.